Hey everybody, welcome to the D. Louise Book Series channel, where we read books and talk about books. I'm a serious person. I like to read character progression from book to book to book. And don't forget Flashback Mondays, Star Trek Next Generation Fridays. But she doesn't like to be on camera. Please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. This is the D. Louise Book Series channel. I'm Christina, Kristina. This is where we read books, talk books. So I was doing Flashback Monday the other day, and this book came up, so I've decided I'm going to go through this series a little bit at a time. Please check out my Steve Berry book reviews this week, my Law K. Hamilton book reviews this week, the comic books we did in honor of the 30th anniversary of the Anita Blake series. Slay's coming out, and we will be doing a report on that one too as we get there. And but I thought I would do a special reading today, and we will be doing more of this author as time goes on. She's a really good author. I really like her. She's really good. Miss I Don't Want to Be on Television has decided she wants to be on television today. I just hope she doesn't disconnect me. I've had that happen. So we're doing the Kadin, Bertrice Small, and we will be doing Sky O'Malley. So I just thought we'd do a little bit of a reading. Takes place in April of the prologue takes place in 1484. Glenkirk Castle stood dark against the gray sky, its drawbridge down along the walls. Men-at-arms paced slowly, always on guard. There was peace in the land, but yesterday's friend could easily become today's foe. From within the castle yard came the sudden sound of hooves. A large black horse ridden by a man wearing a cape clattered across the drawbridge and onto the road. The rider, his cape fluttering wildly in the wind, pushed the animal into a gallop. Behind him, Patrick Leslie, Lord of Glenkirk, left a group of wailing women, his newborn son, and his dead wife Agnes. As he rode on, his mind slipped back to the weeks and months just past. He had waited eagerly for the birth of his heir. Agnes had had an easy confinement, managing to keep her sunny disposition even in the beginnings when she had been so sick. What? I don't have to pet you anymore. You're gonna swipe at me. He had waited eagerly for the birth of his heir. Agnes had had an easy confinement, managing to keep her sunny disposition even in the beginnings when she had been so sick in the morning. Patrick Leslie was 24 and had been orphaned at 10. Had grown up guided by an old uncle and the men-at-arms who inhabited his home. He had married late, and in a time when most men his age had sired several sons, he had sired none. Then his eye had lit upon the petite, golden-haired daughter of Cummings' clan. He had married her quickly and with some said almost indecent haste. The day they both awaited had finally come. Anxiously he had paced the anteroom outside his wife's chamber, his cousin Ian keeping him company. There had come a loud and lusty wail. A few minutes later his wife, Lady-in-Arms, appeared in the doorway, a small bundle in her arms. Oh, that's not good. Sorry. I think you'd rather see Miss Pixie over here than me. There she is. Alright, let me put this back. I know, I'm sorry. No special effects here. I'm sorry my audio is bad. Your son, my lord. Lady Agnes wishes to know what you would name him. Patrick grinned broadly and stared down at the tiny wrinkled creature. Adam. Tell her he is to be called Adam, for he is but the first. The lady in waiting curtsied and returned through the door with the infant. Ian Leslie cocked his head. The first cousin? What of little Janet? Ian, Adam is my first son, my legitimate heir, you clod. Ian chuckled and ducked the friendly blow aimed at him. You'd best send a messenger to Agnes's family or Lady Cummings will be on your neck, and what's worse, she'll be moving in for a long stay unless you reassure her quickly. Patrick nodded as they turned to leave the room. The door to Agnes's bedroom opened and a little maid flew out. The Lady Agnes, the Lady Agnes. Patrick grabbed her and shook her sharply. In God's name, girl, what is wrong? Blood, wailed the servant, blood. Oh, Holy Mother, have mercy on her. And his wife died. Um, uh, Chapter 1. Wiping the hands on his shirt, James the Fourth, King of Scotland and the Isles, leaned back in his chair and surveyed the scene before him. On his left, Patrick Leslie, Lord of Glenkirk, who at the moment was engaged in conversation with James' lovely mistress. James' eyes swept the room. A minstrel sang a sad song of the borders, and the unusual warm March day made the hall reek of the long, unaired winter. The king noted from beneath hooded eyelids that many eyes were darting back and forth between himself and Patrick Leslie. Good, he thought. Let the shaming bastards wonder. Dear God, why are there so few I can trust? But he always knew the answer to that question. On his right sat the Hepburn of Hales, newly created Earl of Bothwell, who James saw had an ardent admirer in the person of a young red-haired girl, who was sneaking a look at Bothwell from beneath her lashes. They say you seek to wed with a Gordon, my lord. At court only 2 days, Mistress Leslie has and already up on the gossip, the Earl replied, looking down at his little admirer. Choose Lady Mary, my lord. She is bonny and sweet of temper. And Lady Jane, said Bothwell, she has cat eyes and the devil's own temper, so I am told. Lady Jane Gordon, who is sitting on the other side of the Earl, glowered at the child. Since when does my cousin Jamie allow young brats at his table? She demanded. I am not a brat, my lady. Lady Jane Gordon rose from her seat. I have half a mind to box your impudent ears, she snapped. The little girl stood legs apart, facing her beautiful antagonist. Stand fast is my family's motto. Yours is something about cunning, isn't it, Lady Jane? The room became deathly quiet as Lady Jane Gordon, hands raised, advanced on Janet Leslie. But Janet didn't wait for the regal hands of Lady Jane to smack her. Instead, fist flying, nails raking, Janet flew at her. Caught off guard, Lady Jane screamed in surprise and tried to protect herself. Laughing, the Earl of Rothwell stood up and, prying the child loose, swung her up in his arms. Put me down, Janet shrieked, beating at his chest with her hands. Hold, lassie, the battle is over and you've won. Hush now, murmured the Earl, settling her down. Janet looked up at him with her green eyes. Give us a smile now, lass. The corners of the little girl's mouth curved up, and she said, You smell of heather and the moors, my lord. Rothrow grinned delightedly, and the king snapped, Will someone send that flirtatious minx to her bed before she starts a feud between the Leslies and my Gordon cousins? Patrick Leslie rose and walked over to claim his wayward daughter. Janet's face darkened. I'll not go, she shouted, unless Bothwell takes me. The hall erupted with loud guff of the men mingled with the embarrassed titters of the women, all of whom knew too well the Earl's reputation with the ladies. "God's nightgown!" roared James. "How old is that wench of yours, Leslie?" "10, sire." "God help us when she's 14. She'll turn the court upside down." "Very well, my lady. Lord Bathurst, will you escort you to your apartments? Leslie, you come with me." James faced the wall. "The rest of you get out and go back to your shames and intrigues. The feast is over." The king moved swiftly to his own quarters, with Glenkirk following, settling himself in a chair. He looked up at the Highland chief standing before him. "So, my lord of Glenkirk, it takes a royal summons to get you to court," said James Stewart. "Aye, your majesty. Yet you were one of the few Highland chiefs who supported me against my late father. Why is that?" "I felt your majesty had the right on his side. In his day your father was a great king, but he grew old and foolish, and Scotland needed a young man to rule her. So I supported your majesty. I have kept from court because my estates needed me, and as your majesty well knows, I am not a man of intrigue. Intrigue is necessary to survival here in Edinburgh. Perhaps not a man of intrigue, Patrick Leslie, but certainly one of great diplomacy. That is why I have summoned you." The Lord of Glenkirk looked puzzled, but James continued, "I am the King of the Scots to send ambassadors to represent me in other countries. I want you to serve as my ambassador in the Duchy of St. Lawrence." "Your majesty will forgive me," said Patrick, "but where is St. Lawrence?" James Stewart laughed. "I don't know of it myself until several months ago. It's a tiny country on the Mediterranean, but it is vital to our merchant trade with Venice and the East. Our dear cousin Henry of England has been trying to get a toehold there for several years, but his emissaries are as dour and pinchpenny as Henry himself. They annoyed the Duke, who is a man of culture and generosity. He sent a delegation to me this Christmas past. I sent them back with many fine gifts and the promise I should send an ambassador come spring. But your majesty, I am no court gallant. I am a simple Highland chief. I know only of my lands and my people. Surely there is someone more suited than I." "Nay, my lord, I want you. For all your talk, I know you to be an educated man, a man with a silver tongue, they say. The Duke of Lorraine is a man of elegant taste. Those wily fools my cousin of England has sent to him have angered him to the point of turning to me simply to annoy Henry. Scotland is a poor country, Patrick, with a haven of safety in the Mediterranean where our ships can stop to replenish their water and supplies. We can trade with the Levant, and England will pay dearly for what we can bring back. I have asked nothing of you before, my lord, but I ask this: do not make me commandant. I value your friendship and loyalty too much. But who will look after my estates and my people? We shall send your cousin Ian. He is honest and loyal. Also, he has angered too many husbands and fathers at court with his whining ways. We will choose him a good wife and send him to Glenkirk as steward over your estates. How long must I stay in St. Laurent, sire?" I shall ask you to remain only 3 years, Patrick. Then I shall send someone else, and you may return. Take your household and family with you." James rose and stood by the window. "You have 2 children." "Ah, your majesty, my son Adam, who is 6, and my Janet, my daughter." "Ah, the little red-headed wench who bested Lady Jane Gordon tonight. What a vixen! Is she betrothed?" "She is only 10, sire." "Many a lass has been wed that young. The Duke of St. Lawrence has an heir, a boy of 14. We should not be displeased if he is taken with your girl. However, that is not a command. He should turn out to be a snaggle-toothed dolt, and should not like to see one of our Scots wasted on a fool." "Thank you, your majesty," said Patrick Wiley. "You will be ready to leave within the month, sir. Andrew Wood will arrange for your passage and that of your family and servants. And Patrick, because I wish to do the Duke honor, I am creating you the Earl of Glenkirk." The interview was at end. Patrick Leslie bowed low and backed out of the room. His head was whirling. Earl of Glenkirk, ambassador to the Duchy of St. Lawrence, a possible marriage for his daughter with one of the oldest, albeit smallest, royal houses in Europe. He should be elated, but he wasn't. He felt sad, as if he'd lost something very dear to him. Cursing his mystical Celtic heritage, he struggled and hurried off to tell his family the news. Could you imagine being married at 10 years old? This country would be up in arms. San Lorenzo basked beneath the warm September sun, its emerald green hillside tumbling gently to the sea. Flashed occasional spots of red, yellow, and orange flowers. To the south the vineyards burst with plum purple and gold wine grapes, and in the valley beyond the coastal hills the ripening grain eagerly waited the harvest. Overlooking the town sat the palace of Sebastian, Duke of St. Lawrence. Slightly below it, facing the sea, was the pink marble villa where His Excellency Patrick Leslie, Earl of Glenkirk, ambassador of His Most Catholic Majesty James of Scotland, had resided for 2 years. Lady Jane Mary Leslie sat cross-legged upon her bed, brushing her long red gold hair. Her green eyes sparkled mischievously at her 8-year-old brother Adam, who impatiently paced the room. "For heaven's sake, Jane, can't you hurry? You've kept Rudy waiting almost an hour now." She laughed. "You may go on if you wish, Adam, but I'll let Rudy won't go without me." "You are a vixen, Janet Leslie." "Just as father says," retorted the boy. "And you, Master Saucebox, are allowed to ride with us only because 'tis merely seemly now that I am marriageable age." "And you, ha!" snapped Adam. "Marriageable age indeed. Father will not allow your betrothal to Rudy until you are at least 14. Could you imagine 14? "He never said that to me. Only one does not discuss these things with a mere female," said Adam loftily. "You were eavesdropping. Oh, Adam, tell me what father said. I'll give you one of Fiona's puppies when they're born." "Pick of the litter." Janet debated. She wanted to give Rudy the best pup, but her curiosity was too great, so she nodded her consent. Adam climbed up upon the bed next to his sister and said in a conspiratorial voice, "I wasn't really eavesdropping. Father forgot I was standing waiting for him. I overheard him telling Duke Sebastian last night. He said he felt even 14 was too young, but he'd permitted the marriage isn't celebrated until you are 16 or 17. "You're a liar, Adam Leslie." "I am not. Ask him yourself." Janet jumped out of bed and gave a shake of her hips to settle her long skirt, ran from the room. She was a tall girl for her age, and the recent onset of puberty had matured her slender body. Her mind raced as she traveled the corridor to her father's suite. She had hoped next Christmas would be the announcement of her betrothal to Rudolph, heir to the Duchy of St. Lawrence, with their marriage to follow within the year. Pushing past a startled servant, she burst into her father's rooms. Patrick had been lying upon his bed, fondling a well-endowed, golden-skinned brunette. He leaped up, smothering an oath. "You have been told not to enter my chambers without knocking, Janet." "You would not have heard me, my lord, father." She smooched. Hey, what are you doing? Um, Patrick turned to the girl on the bed. "Get out." The girl rose slowly, but her mouth sulkily. "But don't go far," he added. Her mouth turned up a smile. The girl slipped out. "And now, my lady, what is it so important that you burst into my room unannounced?" "Adam said he overheard you tell Duke Sebastian you would not permit my betrothal until I was at least 14, and then no marriage till I was 16. "Your brother has large ears and talks too much," answered Patrick. "Then it's true." "Ay, Jan. Why, father, why must you do this to me? 14 is not too young to be wed. I will not have you die at 15 in childbirth like your mother or Adam's." "God's foot," she swore, "I am nothing like Meg in either face or form, and as for Agnes, she was frail. Leslie women have always been good breeders, and I'm Leslie born. The last was said proudly. Teenage angst. Can you imagine the teenage angst? Do you have teenagers who think they're going to die tomorrow if they can't see their boyfriend, or so and so said something, or so and so said that? And it's even worse nowadays because we have Facebook and TikTok and all this Instagram, and stuff is known spontaneously. It's really outrageous. And I know you remember that, you weren't going to live till tomorrow if you couldn't see the boy, or um, you little teenage angst. That's exactly what it is. It's all teenage angst. Um, so, look, father, she pulled her skirt tight across her flat belly, revealing a wide span between her hip bones. Grandmother says I am meant to bear children, so do brother Dundas and Padraig Glen. God damn your grandmother and those prattling priests to hell, he shouted explosively. I will not see you wed at 14. What do you know of marriage? And for God's sakes, don't quote the catechism to me. You think it will be all fetes and hunting parties? Well, let me tell you, my fine lady, it won't be. You'll be expected to produce an heir post haste and then protect the precious succession with a gaggle of brothers and sisters. At the first sign you are with child, you will be cloistered like a nun. As for Rolf, you'll scarce see him except for the bed. That's not so. Rolf is very bit the gentle knight. I in the courting, but once the marriage is consummated and you are big with child, he'll be off with some appealing creature like the one who waits for me now. I'll have him get me with child. Then you'll have to wed us. Patrick Leslie grabbed his wilful daughter by her arms and stared down into her face. His fingers pressed cruelly into her soft flesh. His voice was dangerously low. I'll not be defied, mistress. If you should dare to try to force my hand, I'll ship you back to Scotland to a convent. And barn or no barn, you remain there until you rot. Do you really think Rudy would wait? He'd marry Medici or some princess from Toolhouse. Releasing her, he took her heart-shaped face in his strong hands and looked down at his stubborn daughter. Oh, Jan, I've had you such a short time. Would you leave me so soon? But, father, I am a woman. By a scarce 2 months. Oh, you are impossible, she shouted. Patrick burst into laughter. All right, you witch. I'll compromise with you, but only providing my physician says you are strong and fit. If he agrees, the betrothal will be announced next Christmas at Duke Sebastian's desire. Jane's face lit up. But the wedding day will not take place until your 15th birthday. And she's all excited. It's wrong. It's totally wrong. She's got the teenage angst. She's got her head in the sand. She doesn't see what life is. And she will grow up quickly, just like Sky O'Malley will grow up quickly. Because she's got to face reality. She just doesn't see it. She just doesn't see it. Janet Leslie's betrothal day dawned clear, bright, and warm. It was December 6th, the feast of St. Nicholas. Mary McKay entered the room, followed by two servant girls who carried Janet's betrothal gown. It was her first adult dress, and she was eagerly stepped into it. Mary looked fondly at her granddaughter. There is nothing at all of my Meg in her, she thought. Janet is pure Leslie. Gazing at her image in the mirror, young Lady Janet Leslie knew she was beautiful. Her gown was of heavy white silk with a deep-cut square neckline and long flowing sleeves. Beneath it she wore a low-cut bodice and a petticoat of silk. An inverted V embroidered with gold flowers divided the skirt into two panels. Between the panels the pristine silk glistened. Patrick Leslie, equally resplendent in a suit of dark velvet green, felt a pang of remorse at the sight of his daughter. Damn James Stewart, he thought, if it weren't for him the betrothal would not have happened. But in his heart the Earl knew that whether it was Rudolph de San Lorenzo or some other lad, he would have lost his daughter some day. He consoled himself with the fact that the wedding would not take place for almost 2 years. You are bonny, little sweetheart, he said. Janet smiled at him, placing her hand in his, accompanied him to the waiting horses. They rode back up the hill to the palace to accept the congratulations and the entire ducal family. the clergy and the other nobility of the region. Afterward, alone with her immediate family, Rudy slipped his arm about her waist. "Did I tell you I love you, Cara? Just today, every day, my sweet." And he kissed the tip of her ear. "Being my fiance officially has made you more demure. It's almost charming." Young Adam brought his sister a gold ring fashioned with the Leslie coat of arms, and engraved inside with the words, "To my own dear sister Janet from Adam." She walked over to him and kissed him on the cheek. "You are the sweetest brother any girl could have." Adam flushed and wiggled in embarrassment. Janet back to her gifts. On the last tray was a beautiful carved leather saddle. "Oh, Rudy, it's wonderful. But it's not for me, Cara. It's from your father." "But you said you'd had another gift for me, and there are no others left." "Greedy wench," said Patrick. "Oh, father, I'm sorry. The saddle is a marvelous gift. It goes with something else, little sweetheart. Come out in the terrace and see what your grandmother has gotten you." The entire family adjourned to the terrace, standing quietly while a white mare, holding her bridle, was a young black man wearing bright and satin pantaloons, a young yellow turban with a white plume, and a gold earring in his left ear. His bare chest had been oiled, and he glistened in the bright sun. "The mare's name is Heather," said Patrick, "and this is Mahmoud. He is a tamed and Christian African, and my special gift to you. I purchased him from a trading ship that put him in here last week. He is gelded and therefore a eunuch." A lot of Bertrice Smalls have eunuchs in her story. That evening, Janet stood on her balcony overlooking the sea. The day had been a long one, and she was relieved that it was over. A jagged streak of lightning out across the sky, followed by a rumble of thunder that echoed into the hills. Soon the rain would begin, bringing an end to the awful heat. Christmas was over, and the new year of our Lord 1493 had begun. The holidays, with all their feasting and merriment, had been happy ones. No longer considered a child, but not yet quite a woman, Janet had expected to take up some of the duties of a future Justice of St. Lawrence. She had appeared with Rudy at all official and church functions on Christmas Day and distributed alms to the poor of Acapella. She was feeling very grown up. Under her grandmother's guidance, she gradually began to take over the task of running her father's house. When she became the reigning Duchess of St. Lawrence, it would be her duty to oversee the housekeeping and provisioning of the castle. She would become responsible for seeing that the servants did their work well and for feeding of the entire household, family, retainers, servants, and soldiers. She must also learn how to order provisions, what meant studying many recipes, and she must learn the difference between ordinary wines and those fit for the palates of the nobility. However, the matter of servant discipline was the hardest lesson of all. By nature, Janet soft-hearted, and the servants knew it. One day, Janet overheard young kitchen maids discussing the desire of one of them to go to the carnival with a butcher's apprentice. "Just tell her," said the first one, "that you want to go home to visit your sick mother. She'll be all sympathy and will not question you." Janet see. She did not like being a Mayafula, but her anger quickly died, and her good Scots common sense took over. When the kitchen maid requested leave to visit her ailing mother, Janet was all sympathy. Of course, she must go. And continued Janet, she herself would accompany the girl with a basket of delicacies to speed the poor invalid's recovery. The little maid was terrified, unable to shake her mistress's good intention. She finally burst into tears and confessed the deception. Janet sent for the other kitchen maid and pronounced punishment. "You," she said to the weeping girl, "you will receive 5 lashes for lying to me. It's a little punishment, but the soreness of your guilt will be greater than the soreness of your back. I know you will not lie to me again. Had you asked to go to the carnival, I would have allowed it, provided your work was done." The girl fell to her knees and kissed the hem of her mistress's dress. Lord Patrick Leslie had gone wild on learning of his daughter's disappearance. The slave Mahmoud, coming from a world where women counted for less than animals, had read his lord warning. The noble Scot did not reward him with gold and his freedom for his alleged valor in defence of his young mistress. Instead, the enraged father had him clapped in irons and thrown into the Duke's dungeon, pending a thorough investigation of his story. Mahmoud had been right about one thing. Patrick Leslie wanted the slave out of his sight. Duke Sebastian executed his questioned Mahmoud carefully and with great skill. Their first discovery was that the eunuch was not a eunuch after all, a situation they quickly rendered. Then he was tortured, and throughout the process one non-participant watched, standing stoically in her dark silk gown and starched coat, clutching a plaid shawl about her shoulders to keep out the dampness of the dungeon. What are you? Um, Mary McKay's blue eyes never left Mahmoud's face. The slave was and always had been deathly afraid of the old woman's light-colored eyes. He felt they saw things that mortals did not. She knew what he had done, he thought, but waited for only her verbal confirmation and the details. With slow care his toenails were removed with red-hot pincers. Mahmoud shrieked prayers to his tribal gods as the new pain ripped up his legs, through his thighs, and slammed into his chest, almost suffocating him. Rivers of sweat poured down his body, and they tortured this poor guy. Uh, in the way, if the girl was saved, he could stand high in the Scots king's favor. If she were lost, no one would blame him, and the sticky diplomatic situation would ensue. Um, Patrick Leslie ground his teeth in rage. He would have outfitted a warship and stormed Candia to rescue his daughter. But Duke Sebastian prevailed. Mediterranean born, he was used to these situations and knew how to handle them. He would send his cousin Pietro di San Lorenzo to the auction to buy the girl back. In that way the girl was saved. He would stand high in the Scots king's favor. If she were lost, no one would blame him, and the sticky diplomatic situation that would ensue between his country and Scotland would quickly blow over. Perhaps the clever cousin could pull it off and regain little maiden, but privately he doubted it. In any case, there could no longer be any possibility of young Lady Janet's marrying his heir. God only knew what happened to the girl during her captivity. He knew a liberal man, but a Duchess of San Lorenzo must be above suspicion. Already there had been a tentative overture concerning a match between Tuileries, and he had made secret inquiries of his own archbishop about annulling the betrothal between his son and the Scots girl. But these thoughts Duke Sebastian kept to himself. He turned to his companion. "Come, my friend," he said to Patrick Leslie, "all will work out as God wills it." The Earl of Glenkirk suspected the wily Duke's thoughts, glowered at him in potent fury, but said nothing. Several weeks later Janet sat quietly in an alcove of private auction room. She sat quietly not because she had suddenly become docile, but because she was still partly in shock. The betrayal of Mahmoud was more than her young mind could grasp, and the swift trip from San Lorenzo to auction block in Candia had left her numb. Janet looked up as a black eunuch touched her arm. "Come, little lady, it's almost time for the sale. I will pull the curtain aside a crack so you may see the illustrious company you have attracted." Fascinated in spite of herself, Janet followed him and peeked through the curtain. She saw a room neither large nor small, a little platform in the center, the walls covered with fresco of men, women, and animals whose activities left nothing to the imagination. There were only about 12 men in the room, one of them Pietro di San Lorenzo. "Why are there so many buyers?" she asked the eunuch. The eunuch smiled broadly. "My master Abdul Ben Abdul, blessings be upon him, has set an opening bid on you of 5,000 pieces of gold. You are not merchandise for a camel driver." Janet had the ridiculous urge to laugh at the prissy attitude of the eunuch, and then Abdul bin Abdul entered the room, and the eunuch quickly led her out onto the platform. The buyers turned eager eyes upward to the platform where she stood. The beginning of fear lightly touched Janet Leslie. Abdul bin Abdul slipped his hand beneath her elbow and drew her toward the center of the stage. French, he said softly, is the language of trade. You will understand all. You're wasting your time and slamming me with this foolish charade, she said. Pedro de Lysander will purchase me, and I shall return to my father. Allah forbid, returned the slave merchant, and he returned to his clientele. My friends, come now to the most important sale of the year. This high-born virgin with hair like golden red sunrise, skin as smooth and white as polished bone, and the eyes the color of the rarest emerald. Behold, gentlemen. He removed the veil that covered her head. The opening bid is 5,000 pieces. Who will bid? 5,000, came a voice. Ben Abdul smiled. The agent of Sultan of Egypt bids 5,000. And they continue. And she is sold, and she ends up in a harem. So if you want to continue with Janet's adventures, it's the Kadin. And if you would like me to read more, let me know in the comments. I don't know how much you are interested in this book. It's probably not available in audiobooks at all. But she gets sold, and they use litters, they put people in those little carriages, but men carry them that they don't have wheels yet, so they're carried throughout the city or town they're in. That was a litter, like when you go to the hospital, or when you saw in the army movies, they put people on this piece of fabric, and it's got poles, and they carry it around like a litter. So we're up to chapter 7. So if anybody would like more information, like me to read more, let me know. Maybe if we get 1,000 subscribers by Christmas, we could do it. But she does, I'll just move this place card up to there. But she does get in her harem, and she has a whole life, and Sky O'Malley will learn about her in later books. We will see Janet again. There's a couple different books with Janet in it, but we will definitely see her again. So please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. I'm just trying here. My girl pal who doesn't like TV decided she likes TV today. And look at this. I don't know if you can see it. $1.95. There you go. The Kadin. She ends up in a harem, and she ends up writing it too. She's a very powerful Sky O'Malley type. Sky O'Malley also has red hair too. We will get to that. Please like and subscribe. Have a good day. Thank you.